about a year ago, I released this video, Marketing is Not Why Most Indie Games Fail. It sparked a lot of discussion in the game dev community, in the internet game dev community. I saw a number of other sort of game dev guru YouTubers talking about it. People were talking about it on Reddit. I've even seen people talking about it in various game dev discords. Now, when I made that video, I knew that it was firmly in the sort of game dev guru category. And I don't really necessarily want to be a YouTube game dev guru. I have nothing against YouTube game dev gurus. I really enjoy a lot of their content. I'm a consumer of game dev guru YouTube content. For my own channel, I would just rather talk to people who like our games and people who like the kinds of games that we make if I can. So I don't really want to be a game dev guru. Why did I make that video that was sort of game dev guru-y? It's because I just felt so strongly about that particular topic. I just felt like I needed to say something about it. I had a few people ask me about, well, are you going to do more videos like this? And I've even answered a few of them, no, I have no plans of if I can help it. But I've seen so much discussion about it. I just wanted to sort of take some time to just clear a few things up. So the most common feedback I got on my video was actually that my music was too loud. That has nothing to do with the topic. However, it was a very big mistake that I really need to watch out for next time. So anyhow, apologies for the loud music if that made it difficult to understand the video. But the next most common thing that I heard back was, and this was from mostly folks who sort of know a bit about games marketing, maybe they're even games marketing people themselves, but they pointed out that the video was, even though it was saying marketing is not why most indie games fail, they were like, the video is all about marketing, right? I mean, you know, and then many of them would like go on about the 4 P's of marketing, right? The 4 P's of marketing are pricing, place, promotion, and product. Product being by far and away the most important one. And so they're sort of saying like, you're saying marketing is not why most indie games fail, yet you've made a whole video about marketing. And that one was a bit unfortunate because there is a 10-second side note in the video at about 2 minutes and 50 seconds that says, hot tip, if you want to game dev on easy mode, make a game in a tag with a high median revenue. And if you want to game dev on hard mode, make a game in a tag with a low median revenue. And I think to a lot of folks, the second they heard that, it sort of hijacked what they thought the video was about. Probably because we've heard that so many times before. If you're neck deep in this stuff, you've heard that like a million times. Like everybody knows that. People have been saying that forever, right? Like Chris Sakowski, my favorite Steam games marketing blogger, talks about it. Ryan Clark from Clark Tank has talked about it, and many other, smart people on this subject have talked about how genre selection is your most important marketing decision. But the video is not about genre selection. That was just a 10-second side note. The video was about finding your quality benchmark. That was what the video is about, because most indies don't do it. Most indies just have no idea what a middling seller on Steam looks like. Most indies have no idea that there's hundreds of games being released every year that will go on to eventually gross over $1 million. And there's thousands of games released every year that will go on to gross over $100,000. So there's so many freaking games on Steam making so much money. There's such a massive middle class on Steam that most indie devs just have no idea it exists. And it's so important to look at that middle class and study that middle class. What I was trying to do with the video was show people how to cultivate this intuitive sense for what is selling on Steam. Most games, they kind of look like how much money they made. They kind of look like it in terms of their graphics, in terms of their art style, in terms of the coherence of their art style, all these things, but also just in terms of their scope and in terms of the sort of like variety that you can see in their screenshots, in terms of the polish level of their capsule, in terms of their marketing copy. There's just so many things you can size up about a game that I think consumers are quite good at doing. It seems to be a part of ourselves that we sort of lose touch with the moment we start working on a game. And I guess I'm trying to help people sort of reconnect with it. So the title of the video, Marketing is Not Why Most Indie Games Fail. The video is not teaching you how to sell more copies. The video is not teaching you how to select your product, how to choose a product that's going to sell a lot of copies. It's not about coming up with a hook. The video is about none of those things. It's not a marketing video. The thesis of the video is that most indie games don't sell because they're not hitting the quality benchmark. They're not commercially competitive. They don't look like something someone wants to buy. Now, many people are gonna like to sort of simplify what I just said and say that they're just not good games, right? I understand what people are saying with that, and I think that people who say that, they're sort of on the same wavelength as me, but I'm always very careful not to say that because the term good game doesn't seem to land on people. Like, I think when people think good game, they think of a game that delivered on its own design goals for itself. And that's a perfectly respectable definition of good game. But the problem is that doesn't really cover what actually sells on Steam. It's not just a game that delivered on its own design goals. It's a game that people want to buy right when they see it. That's the kinds of games that sell on Steam. Or nowadays, now that demos are becoming so dominant, it might even be a game that you want to buy as soon as you play it. Some other terms I use instead of good game are like remarkable game, or a game that people want to buy. And to flip that, you've got games that many people would say are like bad games. I'll give the example of Cyberpunk 2077. Now it's been a few years. I don't think most people would call that a bad game, but certainly right when it released, it was a very unpolished game, at least we could say. And people were saying that it was completely broken, whatever, it's complete trash. People were saying all sorts of negative things about the game, but it didn't matter because the fundamental thing that it was, which is this freaking massive sci-fi city with incredible detail and incredible scope and incredible, deep narrative quests and tons, like just oceans of content. Like, that thing is a thing that people want. And they're not exactly, of course, if it's, if everyone's saying it's really good, that might, drive more people to buy it. But even if many people are saying that it's not good, people still want it because of the fundamental thing that it is. Some folks gave the feedback that, like, I think you're confusing promotion with marketing, and it sort of goes back to that same thing. They're like, you're talking about product selection, you're talking about market validation. Those are marketing things. And yeah, again, I wasn't talking about like the core pitch for the video. Marketing is not why most indie games are failing. I was not saying most indie games are failing because they're not doing market validation. And I was not saying most indie games are failing because they're not, selecting the correct products. The thesis of the video is that most indie games are failing because they do not have commercially competitive production muscle, and they are not making a commercially competitive product. So going back to what I was saying about the lightning in a bottle games, the example I gave in my first video was Undertale, Vampire Survivors, and I think Among Us it was. And I heard a surprising amount of people respond and say that those were actually not lightning in a bottle at all. And the reason that X games sold was, for this particular reason. The thing was, this particular reason part, I heard 20 different reasons for each of those games as to why it sold. So, and maybe there are just 20 reasons and everyone's really smart and knows exactly what they were. But all I was saying was that I could never look at Vampire Survivors before that game hit. I could never look at the Steam page. I probably, even if I had played it, I probably would not even have known it was going to hit. I could never have predicted that game was going to succeed and sell as much as it did. Maybe you could have predicted him. I don't know. Maybe you know way more than me. The reason why I think that those games are pretty confusing for people and just sort of like make people lose the way a little bit when it comes to having this sort of intuitive understanding of what sells on Steam. People feel like there is actually a viable path to success by making a game that looks like Vampire Survivors, that has that production quality, that has that sort of like even the scope. Like that game is a game that a lot of people could make without serious production muscle, right? In my opinion, and this just might be the kind of like developer that I am, and that my company is. Like we take a long time on our games. I've said before, I think our games are sort of idea light, content heavy. So given that our games are sort of idea light and we just like to knock people's socks off with like all the other stuff, maybe it's just because there's just not the kind of design expertise that we have between myself and the other designer, my wife. But to me, it just feels like a really unreliable path to success. Most games that sell on Steam, they look good. Like there's more commercially serious production muscle that has gone into them. Like they have good art and they have coherent art styles and they have like, polished looking UIs. If you want to make a game that makes $1 million, I think it's more reliable to make a game that sort of looks like all the other games that made $1 million. If there's 9 games that made $1 million and one of them looks like Vampire Survivors, obviously that game made way more than $1 million. But like to go for the one that looks like Vampire Survivors, and maybe it's just because people don't have that production muscle. They're not professional artists. They're not professional coders. They don't have the resources to hire them. So they kind of feel like their best shot is like getting that sort of lightning in a bottle game like Vampire Survivors. Anyhow, those are just my thoughts on it. I just wanted to sort of clear up mostly the misconception that my video was actually about marketing. It wasn't about marketing. There was just that 10-second little aside. I just wanted to clear that up. I hope that video was helpful to people, and I hope some of y'all stick around for my other non-game dev guru content. All right, see ya.